Welcome back to the F3 podcast. This is Blake Anderson, Money Pit, and this week I have with us Greg Borchardt, Tarzan. Tarzan, thanks for joining us on the Q Source podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for asking me to join this.
Yeah, happy to do it. I was telling you before, Tarzan, and like all the packs who listen know, I try to pick guys who live this stuff. Each chapter is personal to people, and I want people who live it out, who can kind of show what this looks like on a day-to-day basis. And when I was talking to Sharkbait about the perfect candidate for this chapter, he didn't hesitate, and he said, Tarzan's your guy. So we're in towards the end of the first quadrant, Q 1.11, study. And this chapter, just to give the quick brief synopsis, is that the case is being made that if you're going to be a leader, you should know what you believe and why you believe it, and there's a process to figuring that out, and that's through study. So Tarzan, I'd just love to hear any just parting opening thoughts on study and why you think Sharkbait picked you to be the guest today.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned before, I'm I'm what I consider to be a newer Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like I said before, it was in 2021 is when I joined F3 because of Sharkbait. He brought me into this, and then later that fall, he baptized me in his Shark Tank at his church. Um, I can only say it to F3 guys, so I say it whenever I
Yeah,
can.
yeah, right. I like it.
Um, but I'm a newer Christian, and I kind of consider myself um, kind of like as a Christian, kind of like I'm in the adolescent phase, perhaps sometimes maybe a little lower than that. Um, but I just have tons of questions. That's why a lot of times at the Q source, it's not uncommon for me to just kind of sit there and listen. It's not because I don't have anything. Well, in a way, I don't have anything to say. I'm just learning and I'm soaking up what these more mature Christians in particular and leaders are saying. And because I'm a newer Christian, I became a Christian because I kind of hit rock bottom not that long ago, now several years ago, uh, close to 50 anyways. Um, and I did that because my way of living just wasn't working at all in just about any area of my life. So I surrendered to Christ and
Mm-hmm.
literally said, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And with that, I've recognized it because I did my life my way and it wasn't working out. I had to do things, a new way. I put my old life behind me, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just learning a new way of living. And F3 has been helpful with that, learning to become a leader in different areas of my life, in my family, just as a person, or in just in situations throughout life. Um, so I just have this quest for knowledge, I suppose, and part of that is fueled out of this desire really to be the best man I can be. And the main reason I want to be the best man I can be is because I have a son, and he's
Mm-hmm.
12 years old, and I just want to be the best father I can be. In order to be the best father I can be, I think I have to be the best man I can be. So obviously becoming a Christian is a big part of that, and learning how to be the best Christian, become the man God made me to be or wants me to be. I can, studying and reading is a big part of that. And the author of this chapter, he touched on a few things. You kind of learn, then you apply, and you learn some more, and you apply that more. And that's what I'm doing. So whenever someone recommends a book, that they talk about, I ask for it. In fact, Nails, just the other day, I was talking with Nails. He mentioned this book about learning to pray and how to pray. And I said, well, can you forward that to me? He forwarded it to me yesterday, and I downloaded it, so I'm going to be reading that one now. And I'm in a book study right now, actually, that is hosted by Kung Fu Panda. Um, and it's all F3 guys, but we get together every Thursday night and we talk about a different chapter each week. So, and the book is How God Makes Men.
Uh-huh.
It's a great book. I'm getting a lot out of that. So I forgot what your question was, but
Yeah, well, you've more than answered it. I just love the like the genuine honesty of your pursuit. And what I'd love to know is like, have you always been that way, or is that just because you've been exploring this new Christian territory?
Yeah, I think I have been that way. But I've always kind of taken a deep dive into something, read some books. Um, and lately, almost all the books I've read have had a Christian foundation in them. And that's been particularly helpful because they're more rooted in the truth more so than any other books I've ever read. I've read a lot of books on maybe like what could be considered self-help books, that kind of thing. And they were kind of helpful, but they never really worked. Um,
Hmm.
it never seemed to last. So I've kind of let those go. But these Christian books that are based with have a Christian foundation, they've been very helpful for me in my growth and becoming, a better man, better leader, better father, better husband. So yeah, I have been, but my focus has shifted. It just seems like whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to do it with God, and it
Yeah.
seems to be working.
Yeah, right. Find something that works and work it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I know you said this has been kind of a way of life and it's come natural to you, but as you read this chapter, I mean, what I mean, how would you think about your life if you didn't study like this? I mean, what benefits do you feel like you derive from this kind of way of living? I want to pull back the cover a little bit for guys who maybe aren't readers,
Hmm.
who maybe don't ask deep questions or and sometimes the obvious questions that take you to deep places and maybe shed light on something that they haven't spent enough time thinking about, and oftentimes when it's a natural way of life, we haven't really thought about why we do it because it's just how we are,
Yeah.
but clearly there's something working with it. And even though it might be natural to you, it sounds like you're pretty intentional about your study these days.
Yeah. So, well, again, this is all rooted in my desire to be the best man I can be, to
Mm,
be the man God either wants me to be or made me to be. Um, so the books that seem to be helpful the most to me are the ones who have gone before me, maybe have been in my shoes in some way, and are now where I want to be. And in one way or another, they're saying, this is how I got here, this is the track I took, and this is what I learned. So I think it kind of like maybe shortens my path a little bit by learning from
yeah,
them, which is
yeah,
really helpful. Um,
yeah. If you've ever taken the long way, who wants to do that again,
yeah,
right? And if
yeah,
there's someone that's got the map, then show me where they are. Where's the map? I'd love to cut some steps off the journey, right?
yeah, and some cut a lot of steps off too. Yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was trying to think when I was reading this chapter, like when in my life I started really reading and studying. And I did pretty decent in school and in college, but I wouldn't call myself a reader. I don't think I really became I think I didn't read and study because I didn't like studying what someone forced me to study. And I found a way to do enough to get by and get A's and B's. And I think when I became an adult and I was out on my own and I had the freedom to study, that I started looking for those cheat codes, that I started really finally wanting to figure out how the world worked. And the books I've read since have always been whatever position I was at, like, how does it work from this angle? Whether it was a political book I was reading or a spiritual book or a novel, I realized I think instinctively like you were saying, I was looking for the faster way, no matter where I found myself. And to me, study has always been kind of a way that I approach that.
Yeah, yeah. Because some of these people, yeah, they put some ideas in my head or presented some wisdom that I don't think I ever could have come upon on my own. Also, um, so I guess in that way, I'm becoming, smarter, more wise, which is also shortening my path a little bit too, and learning what I want to learn to be the man I want to be.
Yeah, I want us to close with this thought that's the last heading of the chapter. I'd love just to get your take on it and wrap in some just kind of advice and wisdom for the packs that you're with. I know that you're super involved in the Q Source community after the Clarion. But there's a lot of guys that maybe you don't have that same involvement with that can learn from your wisdom. And it's this phrase, if you're in the book, it's page 74, and it says faith is a practice that requires study to accelerate. Faith is a practice that requires study to accelerate. And I think you've been painting this picture pretty good so far, but I'd love for you to turn that phrase kind of into some practical wisdom and advice for the PAX that are listening.
Well, to be straight, like with Q Source and like this book study, yeah, I'm getting a lot out of the books. But what I found particularly helpful, and I think this is part of that iron sharpens iron thing, is when I'm with the other guys and some of these discussions that come out of it, that just seems to have a whole different effect and benefit in a lot of ways more than what the book does, more than what I'm getting out of the book. Um, can't really put my finger on that on what exactly that is, but it's definitely part of that iron sharpens iron thing. It's just very valuable.
Man, I'm so glad you touched on it. I hadn't really even thought of this because I read so much independently, but I'm with you. The times in my life I've grown the most wasn't just when I was reading. It was when I was reading something with other men that could shed light from a different place in the journey, ideally people that are ahead of me or in a different place. And I could talk it through, I could work it through, we could chew on it together. And we just kind of worked it into each other. And, oftentimes you read a good book and when you get to the end, you throw it to the side and you grab another one, versus when you're doing a study, you take it slow because we're talking through it and we're actually digesting it and allowing it to plant inside of us.
Yeah. That's true. The talking about it part. Yep. That's a big part of it. Don't know why that's so helpful, but it really is.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I'm hopeful and prayerful for the PAX that are watching this, that they'll continue to commit to being a part of the Q Source community. I know it's been a real benefit for me over the past couple of years. And I see you guys have a real loyal, faithful group where you're at. And I just hope that men will continue to join you on Saturdays at your Q Source, because it's great to hear men the second time through, the third time through, they're engaging in different ways. And I really think it's because we're doing this together. It's not just the study, it's the study in that community of people that are going after more, and we're going after more together.
Yeah, this Q Source, it wouldn't be nearly as helpful or beneficial. We were just kind of read it on our own and never talked about it, never got together and talked about it.
Yeah,
It'd be kind of a waste, I think.
I think so too. Well, Tarzan, I appreciate you being willing to talk about it with me. And, I said it earlier, and I just want to affirm you again as a leader in our community. You're leading with such honesty right now. And I know you see yourself as following men ahead of you. You're exploring into new places, but the genuineness and the honesty in which you're approaching this conversation and your conversations is really leading us younger guys, and also leading us older guys to remind us just what's possible when we see things with fresh eyes. When we're willing to ask the honest, innocent questions, we see new things. And so I appreciate your leadership in this community.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. All right, Pax. Well, that's Q 1.11 study, and we'll see you this week at the Q Source table.